WWE, a TV show that is frequently looked down upon for being predetermined and choreographed, while the crowds flock to see the latest season of Stranger Things. What a world of hypocrisy we live in.
Right, sorry.
While most of the world seem to associate professional wrestling with the WWE, let me tell you a story of another corporation. Many moons ago, the WWE had a competition. That was actually competition, called WCW. The WWE lost its talent to the opposition every other week and started to dramatically lose their star power. It was a ratings battle for years, constantly competing against one another. But over the years, WCW eventually started to crumble. You see, the WWE had edgy and compelling television, pushing boundaries on the small screen, while WCW's behind the scenes were being corrupted by certain talents, inflating their own egos and wanting everything done their own way. This led to sloppy writing and poor television shows. The serial killer Chucky once appeared on their show, they had a Viagra on a pole match, and honestly, if I were to list all the bad decisions they were making, we'd be here all day. And amidst these bad decisions, as WCW's ratings were dropping, they wanted to so desperately make a movie, hoping to bring in a wider audience and save their asses. And they didn't half-ass the star power. They managed to get star of the cinematic masterpiece Santa's Slay Bill Goldberg, they got Sting, Diamond Dallas Page, Macho Man Randy Savage, Sid Vicious, Perry Saturn, Bam Bam Bigelow, Billy Kidman, Mr. Perfect, Rey Mysterio, Booker T, Mean Gene Okerlund. Hey, it's John Cena before he was famous. Michael Buffer. It certainly is a WCW movie. I'm guessing Hulk Hogan wanted too much money.
I know!
But as the company was slowly deteriorating, they had to rush to get the film out in time before they imploded completely. In fact, when the movie came out, WCW actually went out of business in less than a year. Just 11 months after the release of Ready to Rumble, the WWE bought the damn company.
That's great.
But WCW truly believed in this. They even put their actual World Heavyweight Championship on star David Arquette in an attempt to hype the film. This really happened. Arquette himself was uncomfortable with the storyline as he was genuinely a massive wrestling fan, and he believed that this just brought a huge discredit to the championship belt.
I like wrestling.
Are you gonna be a wrestler?
I mean, he doesn't have to be, he still has a world title to his name. He even ended up losing it in a match that was shown in the film. Writer Vince Russo was responsible for a lot of these bad storylines, and Booker Eric Bischoff even came up with the idea for the film. Bischoff was supposed to play the douchebag promoter in the movie, but he had left the company by the time filming began, so it just didn't happen. But even David Arquette didn't want to do the film. He read the script, knew it was a terrible idea, but only agreed because Vince Russo pressured him into it. Though Arquette did donate all the money he made from the movie to the families of deceased wrestlers Owen Hart and Brian Pillman, as well as paralyzed wrestler Darren Drozdov. But it didn't work as the movie was slammed. Half of the film is paying tribute to professional wrestling, but the other half is Arquette and his character's friend Sean, played by Scott Caan, on a dumb duo road trip. Some found it uneven, but the main consensus was that it's made for wrestling fans, but seems to spend the majority of the film making fun of wrestling fans.
Wrestling's a game for little boys.
Wrestling is for retards!
You'll know it's just a show, right?
No skimpy outfits, no touching other men.
Everybody knows wrestling's fake.
Just because it's your dream doesn't make it right or noble or whatever. Charlie Manson was following his dream.
Did he just compare a murderous cult to being a fan of professional wrestling?
Mind your own business, all right?
But hey, sometimes it's funny.
Wrestling's fake.
Wrestling's not fake!
And I can honestly see that argument, people saying that the film doesn't know who it's catered towards, but I think it's pretty obvious that it's catered towards wrestling fans who know that it's a silly sport and can kind of laugh at themselves and make fun of themselves for how seriously they take it. During the entire movie, the guys legitimately think everything in wrestling is real. And I'm sorry, I find that funny. I mean, yes, it's exaggerated, but it is a silly sport and we still love it. Just learn to laugh at yourself. It's fun. The problem is they try to do the underdog story that they're just these young guys with wrestling dreams and everyone who makes fun of them is the bad guys. So ultimately they accomplish their dream and the whole message is,
You didn't make wrestling! We made wrestling!
But it doesn't work when Arquette, playing a guy called Gordy, and Sean are fucking obsessed. Wrestling is all they think about and all they talk about. Not only do they apparently stand outside of a store all night teaching kids about pro wrestling, they fantasize about beating up store clerks and the Macho Man, but they are grown men and have an unhealthy obsession with it all.
Let's go out again. We'll go out. We won't talk about wrestling. We won't talk about Jimmy King.
Hell, they lose their jobs and they're still more concerned with WCW. It doesn't quite work with the underdog angle they try to go for when Gordy is such an unlikable douchebag. Sean is actually pretty good aside from his wrestling boner, but he seems like an alright dude and the performance is solid. I can get behind him, but when people make fun of Gordy, I just don't feel sorry for him. I think the worst part about this movie is that it came out during a time when Hollywood was totally convinced that David Arquette was going to be a big comedic talent. It is painful. He shoves his fingers up his own ass just to con the store out of giving him a new slushie. And it somehow works even though he's already drank it.
How could you drink that?
Gordy even sabotages Sean while he's on the shitter, and it's just awful. What was it with the 90s and early 2000s making protagonists unlikable douchebags and thinking it's funny or charming? He's just a prick.
A cheeseburger maxi meal and the Brittany Barrett's buffet. Please.
The Red Eye Circle!
He also perv over the divas because in the early 2000s, this made a likable hero and not a creepy pervert. Sean likes this girl, but she's a complete cow, but this other much nicer girl likes him and he ignores her because
She's too much like one of the guys. That's bad. It's gay.
well, that aged well. And then randomly before the third act, he decides he wants to be gay and shags her inexplicably. Alright. David Arquette also seems to have Will Ferrell-itis, where he seems to think just randomly screaming is automatically hilarious.
Yeah! Bring it on! This isn't even a pay-per-view! Fake! Giant tonight! No! What's wrong with you? I will rule you! We're gonna reign supreme! Oh God, no!
Whereas Scott Caan plays it more straight, and he's actually quite good in it.
I need you, man. I don't know if I can do this without you.
Do you though? If anything, he's dragged you down the entire time. But I have to admit, there are some genuinely funny moments. At times, the movie does have some good jokes.
Would a loser have 2 tickets to Monday Night Nitro live from Giant tonight?
Yes?
Now, according to his authorized biography, Jimmy King worked very hard in high school. And after you died in a plane crash, he went to community college.
But some jokes are so forced. They crash their shit truck, and then a truck of toilet paper also crashes. You know what? That's so forced and ridiculous. I kinda love it.
What are the odds of that?
Their favourite wrestler is this guy called Jimmy King, and apparently that is his birth name. Played by Oliver Platt, but he is just a bad rip-off of Jerry the King Lawler. I'm not sure why they felt the need to create a fictitious favourite wrestler instead of using a real one, but alright. But do you buy for a second that this guy is undefeated world champion and holds the record for the longest winning streak in wrestling history? He looks like a comic book store owner. Also, it's very strange that this movie features real wrestlers, mentions real wrestlers that they're legally able to because they're no longer in the WWE.
Sammartino, Blassie, Gorgeous George, George the Animal Steel, Superfly Snuka, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan.
But then they say that Jimmy King holds the record for the longest winning streak in history, which they say is 14 years.
It's still the same dumb trailer hitch I discovered 14 years ago.
But I mean, Andre the Giant was undefeated for 15 years, the Fabulous Moolah was undefeated for 27 years. It's just not true. I mean, I guess he creates a nice atmosphere with his entrance and presence. It is quite charming.
I'm the king of rock, there is none higher. Sucker MCs, call me sire. Burn my kingdom, you don't use fire. I don't stop rocking till I retire.
At least it can't get any worse.
Jimmy King is the best wrestler. He's the bestler. Better than all the wrestler. He's got class.
He's really fast.
He'll rule ass.
He'll rule that ass.
And I'm surprised they don't get a lawsuit. Considering this is a whole different company, they do take a lot from WWE and not just the Jerry Lawler ripoff.
It's the people's champion.
I'm gonna open up a fresh can of whoop ass on you.
The whole setup is that Jimmy is a deadbeat who's always late to work and thinks he's better than everyone else. And he's somehow playing the good guy. So the boss is sick of his shit, goes against the script and makes him lose the title. Sorry, how is the promoter the bad guy here? Yeah, this movie is spoofing the Montreal Screwjob. It's their main plot point.
I made that damn league and he knows it.
I put the damn butts in the damn seats.
Although Jimmy King can't be Bret Hart in this scenario. Because he actually likes Goldberg.
You guys are as dumb as paint.
Then again, they do want to copy WrestleMania 15 with a hanging in a cage. They end up meeting his wife, played by the aunt from Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and it turns out he's a dick who abandoned her and their family. The movie weirdly does give a decent message of why you shouldn't meet your heroes. They're gonna be an asshole. Hell, they even have Martin Landau spoof Stu Hart. Do you have any WCW in your WCW movie? They do have some obvious and predictable jokes. They get picked up by some nuns, but what do they sing?
Running with the devil!
And if you think they're above it...
Oh my god. They are the farting nuns.
Hell, they even have the cliche of the strict cop father who wants his son to follow in his footsteps until he watches him wrestle for 20 seconds and then he's all for it. I'm also not buying it that this many people watch WCW in 2000. I mean, everyone they come across seems to be fans. But this movie also asks the truly philosophical questions. The truly deep, meaningful questions that really make you think.
If you only have one left, is it still your left nut?
And yeah, apparently they're able to just rush over during the event and get closer seats. That's how that works! Yeah, it was WCW in 2000. I'm sure there were plenty of empty seats to choose from. At times, it is a nice tribute to wrestling. They show wrestlers calling the match as they go, which is accurate and quite interesting, but it's not always.
It is safe to assume that professional wrestlers are universally recognized as the greatest athletes of all time.
No, they should be, but they're not. Once Diamond Dallas Page goes against the script, the fight is now real. This is completely legit, but then he hits King with the catapult. Arguably one of the fakest in the sport. It literally requires the opponent to jump into it. This is ridiculous.
You idiot. That stuff doesn't work.
But a catapult does. And I don't think the writers know how wrestling works because he uses a chair and doesn't get disqualified, hits a low blow and doesn't get disqualified, everyone and their mum interferes and don't get disqualified, and bear in mind the referee isn't even in on this plan because he says, "What are you doing, Pete?" So it's not even like the boss has paid him off to not call for the bell. No, he doesn't try to disqualify them at any point.
He will never, ever fight for the WCW again!
But we're gonna go out of business in a few months' time anyway. They decide to try to track down the king and end up bumping into that kid from American Pie, and he seems to think he can find his location online. It's played out like he's this genius researcher and hacker, but it's literally on the man's own fan site. And if you think this technology isn't dated enough...
I must confess, I still believe.
But I don't quite get it. Jimmy King was undefeated and their biggest star. He was world champion, had a massive fan base, people had action figures and arcade games of him. So why or how is he still living in a damn trailer? Hell, one of the divas, Sasha, played by Rose McGowan, has an amazing place. Why doesn't he? Speaking of which, McGowan reportedly hated her experience making this movie. She had refused to do it and threw the script in the trash 3 times before eventually being talked into it. She also hated the final product. I'm beginning to notice a pattern here.
What are you, high?
She has a love story with Gordy, but this is the worst love story in the history of love stories. He's a complete tool, but she fancies him because reasons.
You're really sweet.
Is he? We later find out she was hired by the promoter to spy on them, so she's a double agent and only pretended to like him. And don't worry, if you didn't see it coming, the movie gives you a very subtle hint.
It's not your fault, Sasha.
I mean, it is a little funny when he misunderstands her flirting and actually wrestles her. Well, that's not too...
Foreign objects!
But they seem to imply she has a change of heart and has grown to like him, and Gordy makes her out to be the bitch. Motherfucker, look in the mirror!
To find our heart.
Well, can I come?
No. Because you don't have one.
Okay, that was a nice line, fair enough. I do think the movie does have some slight charm beneath the arse fingering. Gordy has to basically attack King to convince him to come back, and it is a lot of fun. They have to sneak him inside the arena in a portaloo. Not sure how they're able to get in or why they need this many damn portaloos in an arena, or how they know exactly the precise point they're going to start filming so they can jump out, but just run with it. But then again, I'm more annoyed that they specifically direct the camera with the shot.
I want to start tight on the belt, then reveal us pulling back, alright?
And then they don't do the shot. This is when the lines of being real and fake become blurred. King, Gordy, Shawn, they all attack, and this is not only allowed to happen by security, but all of it continues to be televised. Then King randomly pins DDP backstage, and because the weird shit guys asked the referee to count, he does, and now they seem to think he's the new champion. And then King goes from wanting the belt
You give me what's mine, you slimy ass freak!
to backing out when given a title match.
Well, hold on, baby, now hold the phone!
But why does he even give King a match? He's made it clear he never wants him in this company again, and now he offers him to come back, win the title, and $1 million. The ending is so long-winded. Before we get to the big rematch, we have to have King go back to make amends with his wife and son and promise to win all the money for them. Doesn't make sense because after this, his son shows up during the match to try to make him lose anyway, so this is pointless. We do have to sit through the tedious scenes of them expecting us to believe Gordy isn't going to just show up at the end somehow, but I must admit, him wanting to give up his childish toys and lifestyle is quite sad. But there's nothing to explain why he changes his mind. They come to get him and he has plenty of time and says, no, I can't go. Then he comes to say goodbye and has plenty of time and says, no, I can't go. And then wakes up and says, yeah, I can go, woo! And why is Shawn dressed like Pharrell Williams?
You can't spit?
It's a cage match.
There's a ladder match going on.
It's a cage match.
You're a mean lady.
My god, this script. How the hell did she manage to teleport inside the cage anyway? It's just a bit weird. They expected an overweight fella who never works out and just drinks all day to beat a Diamond Dallas Page in a real fight. But I have to admit, it is quite sad when DDP starts to get the upper hand and everyone cheers on King. But surely, all of these unscripted moments, I mean, this isn't pre-written, so isn't this just physical assault? Aren't they just criminals at this point? And believe it or not, King actually chooses David Arquette as a tag team partner over Bill fucking Goldberg. Honestly, the movie isn't good. By no means is it good, but I don't think it's as bad as everyone says. It knows it's silly, it knows it's ridiculous, just like it knows wrestling is silly and ridiculous. Arquette is awful, but when he tones it down, he's actually alright, and the humour does hit well at times. It does have charm, it just needed a bit more time to tweak the problems. And maybe kicking Vince Russo off the project may have actually helped.